Yeah, I'm good.
Heartbeat. It's crazy how something so simple can signal the beginning and the end of life. Love, give, go. This is the heartbeat of our church. Together as a church, we are called to show unconditional love to the people around us. We are called to welcome everyone with open arms, just as the Father welcomes the Son. Together as a church, we are called to be irrationally generous. We search for and give every last thing we can, just as the Father gives the feast to welcome the Son. Together as a church, we are called to an unwavering mission. We are forever searching for the lost to bring home. Together as a church, we are called to have a heart beating for His kingdom to reign. Everyone needs a healthy heartbeat in order to have a healthy life. So, why does your heart beat?
We're talking as a church about the health of our heart, not our physical heart. Your doctor can talk to you about that. But all of our locations, fellows at RCMU, East, West, everyone online, we're all talking about the health of our spiritual, emotional heart. Here's what I know. Based on my research, if you do not have a healthy heart, the heart that can get broken, the heart that you can put into something, the heart that you can invest in others, that heart, if it's not healthy, you will not be able to thrive in life. Even the specific part of thriving, you won't be able to dream anymore. Dream about what kind of a marriage that you're going to have. Dream about future family, about a future vocation, about dreaming about how to solve certain problems in the world, dreaming about anything. Your dreams will begin to just fall apart and you won't do it anymore. In fact, some of you right now as adults, you're like, yeah, I don't dream anymore. I don't dream about the future. I don't dream about possibility. And you just have given up on that. If you don't have a healthy heart, you won't dream. Now, in my research, I can show you some of the reasons why we don't dream. Specifically, is this. We feel inadequate, so we stop dreaming. We feel like, I can't, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough resources, I'm not smart enough. We feel inadequate, so we stop dreaming. Or maybe you are undisciplined. You don't dream because you don't work hard and you don't try to get to where you need to get to and do what you need to do. So you're like, why dream? I'm not going to be able to do that. Or maybe you've just been hurt. So based on my research, these are the three. These are the three that show why we don't dream. The reason this is important is these are all heart issues. What I want you to see is very simple, is that your heart, the health of it, helps you dream about the future, helps you enjoy life, helps you actually live now in this moment, but even the rest of the years that you have here on earth, it can be this special, peace-filled, joy-filled life if your heart is healthy. Jesus brought this up, John 10:10. We've been talking about this verse. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come, Jesus came that they may have life and have it to the full. A full life, you're able to dream and thrive. Your marriage is able to thrive. What you do for a living can mean something to you. How you spend your time and resources can have great things and great powerful moments for you and others. But you need a healthy heart. A healthy heart is the key to healthy relationships, healthy goals. So we've been praying a prayer. We started it off. It's in the Bible. I'll show you in Psalms. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Now, this scripture here tells you about the power and significance of your heart. It tells you about if you don't pay attention to it, then bad things will go on and you will have troubles in life. If you look at more what David said in Psalms, create in me a clean heart, O God. I mean, you see it mattered to him too. If everything that you do is going to flow from it, if it's a big deal about your marriages, your relationships, your workplaces, you at school, friendships, all that, if it's a big deal with your heart, well then you got to know that not only do you just begin to behave differently, you got to pray differently. And David puts in the Bible, create in me a clean heart, God. I need help. And even deals with the loyalty part. Renew a loyal spirit within me. I don't know if you've ever had relationships divide and cut, whatever word you're going to use, and you wish that there had been loyalty there. Maybe you've done that with God, where God didn't do or did something in a way that you disagree with, and you're like, I'm done with you, God, and there wasn't a lot of loyalty there. What we've learned about relationships and life in general is that the health of our heart is a big deal. It's so significant that you can live a very bitter, jaded person, maybe full of fear or anger or worry or anxiety. Or you can live that full life where you're able to thrive. And so what we've done as a church is this, is we're opening up a story that Jesus told. He told a brilliant story, and so we've been opening up this story, and we started in week 1 looking at a specific part, but we're learning what a healthy heart looks like. If you missed the first week, let me get you quickly caught up. There's this son and this dad. The son goes to the dad, I'd like my inheritance early. Says, Dad, I know you're alive and you're breathing. I'd like my inheritance early. Dad gives him his inheritance. The son leaves home with his inheritance, wastes all of the money, blows it all on the Bible says, wild living and bad things like that, just throws it completely away. And then finds himself so destitute, starving, having nothing, no money, no food. He's staring at the food that pigs are eating, going, I want some of that. And he decides the only thing I can do is go home. I'm going to go home. I'm going to work for my family. I will no longer be a part of the family. I'm just going to work for him. And so here's what happens is he returns home expecting to be his dad's servant, not son. And that's where we learned the first week about unconditional love. I'll show you in the Bible where it says, so he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him and kissed him. Threw his arms around him and kissed him. I mean, that's unconditional love. That's what we learned, that if you want a healthy heart, you need unconditional love. If you missed it, go watch that. But let me make a quick observation that helps us go even further and deeper and into a more mature conversation. A healthy heart requires more than a hug. I mean, I'm not downplaying what the dad did. What the dad did was a big deal. I mean, the dad seeing his son far off who had thrown away his inheritance and cast shame on his family. Oh, I get that. But dad hugged him. But love is more than a hug. Love is more than just saying to someone, hey, I love you, or I like you, or I care about you. It's much more than that. A healthy heart requires more than a hug. Have you ever had anyone one day say that they love you or they care about you, then the next day they treat you like a stranger? You ever had that? Yep. I would imagine all of us have experienced where one day it's this way, the next day it's completely different. A healthy heart requires more than a hug, because you can lie about love. You can fake love. You can say things with your mouth that you don't mean. You can even for a moment behave in a certain way that indicates you care about a person, but it's over the long term. Can we all agree to that? It's the long term. It's the day to day, the week to week, the month to month, year to year that begins to prove that love. A healthy heart requires more than just giving hugs. So look at what the dad did. This is profound. But the father said to his servants, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. So you notice it's no longer just, hey, I'm glad you're back. I'm giving you a hug. Yeah, you're going to be one of my servants. Yeah, you're going to work for me, and that's all you're ever. No. Bring the best robe and put it on him. The robe would have signified what family he was now a part of. Put a ring on his finger. Again, the ring would have had the family symbol on it. And sandals on his feet, protection. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. The reason they're having a meal is not because everyone's hungry. Jewish culture says if you want to reconcile with someone, if you want to restore a relationship with someone, you have to have a meal together. The father goes out to the son and hugs him and shows love to him in a moment. But he doesn't just stay there. I think a good vast majority of us think that that's okay to just hug and be like, just move on. No, the Father gives us even more indication of what a healthy heart has. 2 words: irrational generosity. Not only does a healthy heart require unconditional love, but irrational generosity. It would have made no sense to the people around that this dad would have said, I'm going to give you everything back and more. We're going to have a party for you. I'm going to kill the best calf. We are going to not spare a single expense for you. Irrational generosity. In fact, here's what I've learned. Anytime you bring up generosity, giving, as in taking something you have, whether it's time, ability, money, resources, anytime you talk about someone giving that to someone else, we tighten up a bit. We get a bit offended. We get like, what are you going to say? Well, I just want to make, I think, a simple observation. Love alone could not make a relationship work. Now I know the Beatles, they concluded that all you need is love. I would disagree. Love alone, love just by itself, love in the essence of speaking it and just being present, love alone cannot make a relationship work. No way. I would tell you that the marriages, couples I've talked to that have wrestled with, there was a dating time where they would talk a lot about how they loved each other, and then there was an actual ceremony where they declared they love each other, but then as the years passed, that love was no longer being shown, it was just spoken. I've heard people say, well, I told him I loved him once, why do I need to tell him I love him again? And especially in today's world, where people say a lot of things, but the power of someone's word seems to be a bit diminished nowadays. Simply would say unconditional love requires irrational generosity. It requires it. It needs it. They work together in a way that creates a healthy relationship. Come on. No relationship works well if you're unwilling to give to the other person. If you're saying, you know what? My time is my time. I know I told you I loved you. I know I gave you a ring. But now my time is my time. Your time is your time. And that doesn't work well. You can't love your kids without giving to them time and resources. God showed this. God showed this in the most significant way, that loving and giving are intertwined and necessary. Let me show you the most popular verse ever in the Bible. John 3:16. For God so loved the world. For God so loved the world. The world is in you and I, people that He created. He loves us. For God so loved the world. Just think about your love for other people. Makes you do things, doesn't it? Makes you think things. Some of you, you're doing crazy things, and you go to this crazy nth degree to create the most amazing date for the person you love. Some of you, you talk weird to your kids because you love them, and you just have the kid voice and do weird stuff. And we do weird things, but they're not so weird in the relationship. For God so loved the world, but He didn't just stay at love. Watch how the verse progresses. For God so loved the world that He gave. Don't miss the significance. Typically when we read that verse, we talk about for God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son. He gave Jesus so we could have eternal life in heaven. Do you find it fascinating? Just to make an observation, you ever find it fascinating that whenever we read John 3:16, we quickly go to what we get? We quickly go to and value what was given and what we get. But don't miss just the power that God so loved us. He gave. God's love for us compelled him to give to us. Compelled him. Don't miss that. God refused to just hug us and say, I love you. His love for us compelled him to offer more than words. His love for us compelled him to sacrifice for us. So since we're in a heartbeat series, let me offer you a heart check. And this is a big deal. What has your love for God compelled you to give? And yeah, I'm talking specifically to those of you who would say, I believe in God, I love God, I follow God, I'm a Christian. So I'm just asking a question. And if it begins to squeeze you a bit or make you feel like your heartbeat is raising and then I'm trying to guilt you, I'm not. I'm just simply asking a question that I think is a good relationship question. I could ask it of you in your marriage. What has your love for your spouse compelled you to give to them? What has your love for your children compelled you to give to them? What has your love for whatever compelled you to give? That's not offensive until I bring God up. What is your love for God compelled you to give to him? I think for many of us, we're like, but I don't know if I agree with that. I don't like that. Why do we separate all of our human relationships and say, you know what, I give to those people because they need it? That's not true. Come on. We have a time called Christmas coming where we will give gifts to people that they do not need whatsoever. You don't give to people only because they need it. You give because there's this sense of gratitude. There's this sense of you appreciate that person and love that person. So out of that love, you're like, I don't want it just to be words or lip service. I'm going to give to you because I love you. I have gratitude in my heart for you. If you were to really nerd out about gratitude, you might come across a quote from Brené Brown that I think is significant. We're a nation hungry for more joy because we are starving from a lack of gratitude. I think she's spot on. I think she's absolutely spot on. That we are a nation, we are a people who we lack gratitude. And so I want to lean into your life. And if you're willing, I want you to be willing to have some conversations, just even with you yourself and God, that maybe the lack of joy in your life, that lack of dreaming, that lack of thriving in life, where you've got relationships that are falling apart maybe, or maybe that lack of joy and health is a gratitude problem. If you're willing to have that conversation about your own heart, then let's talk about that. A gratitude problem creates a greed problem. See, a gratitude problem, when you cannot appreciate another person, when you cannot appreciate and have true gratitude, not fake, true gratitude, then that goes into a greed problem. A greed problem that most of us are like, well, I don't like greed. Greed's bad. And you don't want to be greedy, but you need to know greedy people became greedy because they lacked gratitude for what they had. If you don't know how bad greed is, how toxic greed is, let me nerd you out on some Greek words. For those of you who don't like Greek words, then just tune out, whatever. But if you, Greek, what the New Testament's written in, has this word, epithemeo, and then basically the same word, but it's at the end. Epithemia. The only difference between the words. But do you see what they mean? The only difference between greed and lust. They come from the same family, greed and lust. Greed and lust. If you want to get your heart healthy, then you got to figure out, do you have a lack of gratitude in your life? Because if you do, then you've got greed there. Greed keeps you from giving. Greed keeps you from taking extra time that you got or time you have and offering time to someone. Greed keeps you from saying, yeah, you've got an ability, a skill set that God himself gave you or that you've developed, and greed keeps you from sharing that. Greed keeps you from giving money or resources or gifts to other people. Greed makes you keep it to yourself because you don't have as much gratitude for them. You've got to protect yourself and build up for yourself so you don't give anything out. And if you don't give anything out, you face a great danger if you refuse to give. Sometimes, in fact, for those of you right now, just think, if you're currently offended by the conversation of giving, perhaps you've got a gratitude problem and a greed problem. Let me show you just a real life on this planet example of what happens if you don't give. It's called the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is the lowest body of water on the planet. It's located in Israel. This body of water is shrinking each year. The weird part about the Dead Sea, if you're like, why do they call it the Dead Sea? A lot of people die there. Well, no, nothing can live in this water because 34% of it is salt. That's why you get pictures like this. The salt just washes in onto the shore and just over time covers just rocks where it looks like, did it snow there? No, it didn't snow. That's salt that's covered. Nothing can live in the Dead Sea, hence the name. Now, why? Why is the Dead Sea the Dead Sea? Why? Something like, well, why don't we just pump some clean water into the Dead Sea? Or why doesn't the rain just take care? Because it rains there. Why doesn't the rain just take care and dilute the salt? I can tell you exactly why the Dead Sea is the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is the Dead Sea because water does not flow out from the Dead Sea. If you don't believe me, if you think you can just study this. The reason the Dead Sea stays dead is because it does not give. It does not flow out. And we even know this in South Dakota, that a clean place to get water is water that flows. And frankly, some of our hearts are unhealthy because we refuse to let anything flow out from it. You know that's the design of the heart, right? The heart is designed to pump blood throughout our whole body. And for many of us, we'll tell someone we love them, or we'll think in our head that we might accept that person, but we don't give at all, and we are blocking our heart. It's called greed, and greed creates spiritual heart attacks. If you've ever met someone who is incredibly bitter and angry, I would tell you that perhaps a source of it is they've had spiritual heart attacks where they no longer feel like they can give because they've been hurt. Remember that dreaming part? They feel inadequate, so they can't give. They feel like they can't do anything in this world because they just don't have the discipline to do it. You need to know that if you don't attack greed in your life, if you don't become a person full of gratitude, you have spiritual heart attack after spiritual heart attack until you are spiritually dead. So why? I don't know if you've ever wondered, why do we all get greedy? Because if you're not willing to, I'm willing to admit it. I have many days that I'm just greedy. I can show you the top reasons, I guess I would say, of greed. It's a lack of discipline, where we feel like I can't give anything to anyone because I have nothing to give, because I don't have extra time, extra money, and we think that we only give out of the extra. That's not true. You give what is important to you. So many of us, because we don't manage our money and we don't manage our time and we don't manage anything, out of a lack of discipline, we become greedy. Or maybe it's humility, where you're like, no, what I have is mine, and I'm not sharing. Now, that was a lesson we taught our 4 and 5-year-olds, but as adults, we grew up and we still lack that humility where we're like, I'm not sharing with anyone. They don't deserve what I'm going to give them. They're not going to manage it well. Or maybe it's a lack of memory. Oh, I say that's probably the worst one, the lack of memory. Or when I'd say most of us are greedy or lack gratitude because we lack a memory. I think it's time to go back to what we're trying to do. Let me show you the prayer. Create in me a clean heart, O God. Create in me a clean heart. Create in me a clean heart, O God. Renew a loyal spirit within me. So I'm going to ask you, and you just answer this privately, just in your own head. Do you want a clean heart? Do you want to be able to thrive in life, live the full life Jesus intended? Do you want to dream again? Do you want healthy relationships? Then you need to let God create a clean heart. If you're willing, I can teach you what the Bible teaches about this. So step 1, remember what God has done. You will begin to get a sense of gratitude in your heart, which then fights greed. You'll get a sense of gratitude in your soul if you remember what God has done. God's even given us warning like, hey, if you don't remember, then you're going to get greedy. And let me show you. Let me show you in the Bible. Old Testament, be careful that you do not forget the Lord your God. Oh, there's the word forget. Failing to observe his commands, his laws and his decrees that I'm giving you this day. Otherwise, when you eat and are satisfied, when you build fine houses and settle down, and when your herds and flocks grow large and your silver and gold increase, and all you have is multiplied, then your heart will become proud, and you will forget the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. I don't know if you pay attention that houses and money, herds and flocks, silver, all that, it's not bad. But it's dangerous if you forget God. It's dangerous if you choose to not focus on what God has provided. In fact, let me tell you very quickly, anything you ever have in your bank account, anything you ever own, anything you ever live in or drive, God gave it to you. It's God's. And if you forget that, you will lose gratitude and you will become greedy. So if you choose to remember that God provides all, what do you do then? I'll show you. Begin with where you are and what you have. See, many of us do not give. We don't give to God. We don't give to others because we're like, well, where I'm at in life right now and what I have is not enough. I've heard this a lot where you're like, well, one day I'm going to give this, and one day I'm going to be a part of that, and one day I'm going to spend time there, and there's one time later on, we always look at the future. I want to tell you, if you want to defeat greed and have gratitude in your heart, have that healthy heart, if you want to be irrationally generous, then pay attention to where you are and what you have now. Because out of that is what you're supposed to be generous with. I'll give you just scripture that plays this out. And now, brothers and sisters, we want you to know about the grace that God has given the Macedonian churches. This is talking about churches. In the midst of a very severe trial, their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. If you missed this, they were extremely poor. But their joy, how do you get joy? You have gratitude. Their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in generosity. For I testified that they gave as much as they were able. So they looked at where they were and what they had, and even beyond their ability. What that means is they gave in ways that didn't make sense to their budget. If you miss this, the amount is not the issue. It's the sacrifice. find it, when we talk about giving as a church, when we talk about it individually, and we talk about the power of being irrationally generous, a lot of us, our minds go to the amount. The amount, what's the amount, what's the amount, what's the amount? That's not the issue. It's the sacrifice. Our thought should be, what's a true sacrifice? Let me walk you into a real story. Most of us remember recently the hurricane that ravaged Houston. And like in South Dakota, when we hear that a blizzard is coming, you know what happens. All the grocery stores have lines and the food goes, the milk, the bread, it's all gone because everyone's prepping to kind of go under for a while, go out of connection to the world. Same thing happens if a hurricane is on its way. So there's a bakery place in Houston who was well known, and when the hurricane was on the news, and it was close, they literally, quite literally, sold out of all of their bread, had to put a paper sign on the front saying, out of bread, we're closed. But that didn't happen until the last minute. Most of the workers of the bakery were able to get home safely to their families before the storm really hit. But 4 of the bakers got trapped at the bakery. This is true. They got trapped. The storm was so bad, they couldn't get home. So they're sitting there trapped in their workplace, which for some of you, like, that's your ultimate, like, worst place ever, to be trapped there. They're sitting there. They can't get to their families. There's no way to connect. And they're sitting there going, what do we do? And then the thought occurred to them. Let's take what we have and where we're at and do something. So for hours straight, 24 hours straight, they baked. They baked and baked and baked over 4,000 pieces of bread, over 4,000 pounds of flour, putting on rack after rack after rack bread. Now, you're like, what else are you going to do with your time, right? But you know that they would have to take shifts because they were so tired, but they kept baking and baking and baking. And if you're like, well, why? Is it just because they were bored? No. What they did next is what's so profound. They packaged the bread up, and as soon as the storm let up, they decided to go distribute all of that bread that they had slaved over and deliver it to shelters and to people in great need of food. It's powerful if you think about it. Because if you know, here's what they could have done is nothing. They could have just hunkered down in the bakery and waited. Or they could have baked enough bread just for themselves. But their thoughts went to giving hope. In fact, let me show you this. A person who is willing to give resources is a person able to give hope. And I believe this with all my heart. And I will till the day I die. I believe you and I want to give other people hope. Because Jesus has given us hope. Hope of a new day, new mercies, new grace. Hope. I believe our world currently lacks a lot of hope. And I would strongly believe that if we get healthy hearts, we can give hope if we give resources. Let's go back to our prayer. Psalm, create in me a clean heart, oh God. Do you want a clean heart? Do you want a clean heart? Do you want to have a clean heart so that you can give hope? I do. I think you do. I think we see people who are hopeless. It breaks our hearts to see tragedies. It breaks our hearts to see people without what they need. It breaks our hearts to know that there are people who don't know who Jesus is. And if we would just not only be unconditionally loving, but irrationally generous, that we could give hope. Hope. Jesus brought hope. If you've never made the connection, giving is directly linked to hope. So, I know what I'm about to do for some will seem divisive and offensive. But I believe some of you really mean that prayer. You want a clean heart. So I will tell you what the Bible tells us on how to fight greed, how to make sure there's gratitude in our souls so that we can be irrationally generous. The Bible will tell you, give to God. For God so loved you, he gave to you. I think it's time that we start thinking about, how do I give to God out of gratitude, to fight greed, to live the full life? You give to God. And I will tell you, here in a moment, I'm going to give us all, every one of us, an opportunity to reflect and apply giving to God. It'll be a moment that I will challenge you to take and to be generous in that moment. Give to God. Give to God, and you become a person full of gratitude. Let me pray for you. God, I pray right now for everyone willing to listen to this, willing to go even deeper from love to generosity. Lord, I pray for those who are about to, in where they are and what they have, give to you. God, I would imagine there are many of them scared. Many of them don't see how it can work. Many of them are not sure if they want to or if they can or if they will. God, Lord, I pray that you will help all of us fight the absence of hope in our own lives and others' lives. Help us, God. Empower us. I know you have, but give us a remembering moment of how good you've been to us. I pray for those specifically who are about to give to you for the very first time. God, would you please give them peace in this moment. But God, we refuse to be greedy people, to just speak love. We are going to live love with generosity. Thank you for being generous to us. Take these next few moments, God, and please find great joy as we give to you. Amen.